Welcome to Transcendence Cinema. Welcome back to Transcendence Cinema. I'm your host, Greg, your local metalhead, and with me is
Victor Martin.
I'm just gonna go with it.
All right, that's good.
And I decided to do Skinamarink because it came across my radar, and you are into super indie experimental films, and I thought it would be a fun movie to talk about.
Yeah. So have you heard of this film previous to you selecting it, or I guess finding it?
So, I think I said on the last podcast, there was a guy made a list of 10 movies that tricked you into thinking they were good when they were really not.
That's right.
And this was on it. And when he was explaining it, I was like, that actually sounds like an interesting movie. So I started like doing a little bit of research. And the more I learned, I'm like, this sounds like something Victor would watch. So
Yeah, it was something that was on my radar for a while. I gotta say, I'm a little bit bummed that I missed this in the theater.
that's what a lot of people said. They said it's a different experience in the theater, which I can imagine.
What did you want to get right into it?
So I have to say, I'm not the biggest horror guy.
Mhm.
I'm very picky about horror. This one, I feel like it had a lot of potential. It had a lot of those things that I like about horror, like having me on the edge of my seat and not really explaining to me, hiding things like in the dark or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I was fascinated by the film, but at the same time, I don't think it needs to be a whole film.
Yeah, the hour and 40-minute runtime, it's like it's hardly justified.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was almost like testing my patience.
I yeah. Yeah, I feel that in a way too. It gets to
Um
a point where it's like it's kind of shown its hand
mhm.
and there's only so much it can do. It's I don't know. An hour and 40 is a little bit too much for this.
Yeah. I have to say though, I do have to give a shout out to the director, the writer, the guy that made this. Like, he's really stepping outside of the box and he's trying something new. And I would rather watch this than a new comic book movie. Those like paint by number movies. Like, this is
Mhm.
experimental. He's trying something new. He's trying something different. Did it work for me? Mostly not, but I'd rather
Mhm.
watch this than that. So I can say that much.
Yeah, I mean I was just so surprised by the fact that this did come out in theaters, and that's what is so awesome. It's like, we have all these huge budget films and huge conglomerate Disney, basically owning the box office. But then you get these kind of films that
Mm-hmm.
are experimental, that are also horror, and it's such a good pairing. I feel it's hard to pull off, and clearly this film is like riding that fine line between just being fucking boring as hell and also like really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I was immediately struck by how the images were so grainy and so like the composition of the shots was just I've never seen anything like it. A film shot like this. It was, I mean, the angles were hardly did they ever capture a full space. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the corner of a ceiling or part of a floor with the TV flickering onto it. You hardly ever saw the kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When he would show the kids and it was just their feet, like that creeped me out more than anything. Like if you
Mhm.
showed the kids, it would be like nothing to me, but just showing like their legs and feet, that like had that creep factor for me.
It did. It added a level of ambiguity. And
Hmm.
personally, I actually like really liked this movie. Um, I thought it was great. I think the way it captures the atmosphere is pretty excellent. Um, the like I said, the grain, the darkness, just the eeriness of the whole thing, I think was really well done. Even if it does get a little tired by the end of it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I just see the sort of like liminal horror on full display. I think that's just I don't know. That's I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah. I personally felt he went a little overboard with the grainy. Like, I don't know. I know he's trying to make it so you don't know what's going on, but at the same time, like, I kind of wish I knew what was going on, or at least knew what I was looking at, but that's kind of half the battle.
Mhm.
Um, but it did give me the sense of when I was a kid, I lived in this house with my parents, and it was surrounded by a cow pasture. So there was
Mm.
nothing around us. And when it got dark, and appearing outside, trees would take forms into creatures, and you never really knew what was out there, and it really like cemented my fear of the dark. So the movie does a good job at giving me that sense that I had as I did as I was a kid. Like, just I the little flashlight jumping around, and it's not really sure what to look at. That was a I felt that. So it did do a really
Yes,
good job at building the atmosphere and making me relive my fear of the dark.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that was probably going to be something we talk about, is like childhood fears, because like you said, like the way the grain just sort of takes shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just like looking into the dark, and you know, you hear a sound, and you're in bed, and you're like still as you know as can be, and you're just looking into the dark, just seeing whatever your brain tricks you into seeing because of the darkness. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think the way it captures that feeling of being home alone, um, yeah, I can relate to that 100%.
Yeah, those are the things I really enjoyed about it. The things I didn't really care for is like if you condense this, I heard this is actually an extended version of something that he did before that was like a 30-minute little thing, and
Okay.
then he expanded. This is movie is an expansion of that. But I
Hmm.
was thinking, I'm like, I kind of wish this was like 30 minutes. If you took all like the best parts, the best creepy parts, and kind of like condensed it down to 30 minutes, I would give this all kinds of praise. It was the staring at the corner of a ceiling for like 5 minutes straight with nothing happening that I was like, I don't like to say the word boring. We said that a lot. Like I don't
Right.
like it when people say boring. I just need something to sink my teeth in. You need to set up some expectations
Hmm.
so that I know or I can like make something up in my head at what I'm about to see next. A really good part that he did this in is one of the kids went into the parents' bedroom and you
Mm.
see the mom or the dad sitting on the edge of the bed, which is fucking terrifying. This is
Yes.
by far the scariest part of this whole movie, for me anyway.
Hmm.
And the kid walks over and the dad's like, check under the bed.
Yeah.
That is setting up expectations. That is letting my brain go all kinds of wild. So when the camera pans down to look under the bed, my brain is going a million miles different directions. I'm like, what am I about to see?
Yep.
And even though he doesn't see anything, that's the expectation is it's scaring me into thinking there's something down there, you
Yes.
know. But when he goes off and just shoots the corner of a ceiling without that expectation, I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know
That's fair.
what I'm supposed to be expecting.
And that's kind of what I said. Like it gets to a certain point where he's done that so many times, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
you've already kind of established the mood, the atmosphere. Uh, what are you like? Are you just running out of things to show us? It's like fuck. I guess I got to put a shot of a ceiling here again, or another shot of the toys on the ceiling. And it's like we've already. I don't know. Why are you showing me this again? Like,
Yeah, exactly. So
it's-
this is really like the nitpicky things. It's just like I wish he would have taken out like half of those shots, maybe
yeah.
condensed it down a little bit. As far as the story though, the kids are home alone and their parents got into a car, left, and the windows and doors start disappearing. I think that's what it seemed
Yes.
like.
Hmm.
And the kids are just trying to figure out what's going on while playing these old cartoons that I grew up on. By the way,
Oh yeah. Okay. Nice.
yeah, it's the kind of stuff I watched when I was a kid. So it hit a little home to me
Hmm.
because I did watch those cartoons like early in the morning or late at night. So I know that feeling all too well. but but yeah, and then there's some kind of creature that's like, or a demonic voice that's leading them around the house. And then I don't really understand the end of the movie. I don't think I'm supposed to. I think I'm supposed to make up my own little ambiguous. But what did you gather, if anything?
Well, I was also just trying to figure out what exactly was this, like a sort of dimension that they were put into,
Mm-hmm.
like a dreamscape. I mean, I think it's probably pretty. I don't know if it makes so much sense to try to put logistics to, why the hell are the doors and windows disappearing?
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, all this sort of happens after one of the kids falls and hits his head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was also trying to figure out, like, because then the dad calls and is talking to probably the mother about how he fell and hit his head and didn't have to go to the ER or anything. And I wonder if that had anything to do with the state of their environment, like the fact that he hit his head. Like, did he actually like really hit his head hard and you know die? I guess, and maybe this is some sort of hell afterlife scenario, or is this just like there's just some paranormal entity that's just controlling time and space. I don't know. Those are my theories on it. I don't know what makes sense or what's actually it. Um, but yeah, like the ending, um, I don't know. What confused me a bit was the title card, the 572 days,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't like. I didn't like that it set it in like it almost grounded it in like realism.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, what does that like? That doesn't make me understand this anymore. Like I would have been just as confused otherwise. Like, but you just made it more confusing. Like, how is this? What do you mean 570 days? Like,
Yeah, like
what are you telling me?
yeah, like the kid was probably hit his head, probably went into a coma, and this is how much time that passed that he was in a coma, maybe. But I do like that theory because it made me think, like, okay, let's say you're a 4 or 5 year old.
Hmm.
Let's say you hit your head and you go into a comatose state and you're having these nightmares. What does a 4 or 5 year old have nightmares about? And it would be this stuff because I
Yeah.
remember dreams that I had when I was a kid. There's one that stands out a lot that I've remembered since I was like 4 years old. Um, I think I told it on the podcast before,
Mhm.
but I was like in my living room. I heard these monsters in the room, and I went to the door and I seen their shadows. And as I was trying to like peek under the door, I couldn't see anything, but I could hear them like making all this ruckus. So I
Mm.
went back into the living room and I was terrified. I woke up, but it was really just me having a dream about my parents fighting, like in all retrospect.
Sure, sure.
But as a 4 or 5 year old, like you don't understand that dream. All you know is like, the fuck, that was scary.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing. Like, what would be terrifying as a kid is he's locked in this house and he can't get out. The doors and windows are disappearing, and you know
And
that
the
actually makes
parents
a
are
lot of
gone.
sense. Yeah, your parents are gone.
Yeah, and I think with me, I remember having a dream. Um, for some reason, I did have a fear of like dolls and those sorts of things. I remember having one dream in particular. I don't remember the exact specifics, but there was like a face of some sort of, you know, doll thing. And the moment like it pops up, my alarm goes off. So it's like almost screaming at me,
Hmm.
but it's just my alarm going off. And I woke up screaming. Like as I'm like, I was like screaming with the alarm as I'm turning it off. And my heart was just like, thunk, 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 thunk. And so like like the whole this maybe being like a comatose state makes a little bit of sense. I mean, from my perspective too, because it's like having a fear of things with faces as a young kid. I feel like it's probably common.
Hmm.
Things maybe like inanimate figures coming alive. I mean, that's a pretty terrifying idea. Or having an imaginary friend, and it's like, what the fuck is that about? So the fact that a lot of these things feel like a kid's fears manifesting, that
Hmm.
does kind of, I feel like adds to a bit of that sort of theory a bit.
Yeah, 100%. I was giggling because I did have a fear of puppets,
Mm.
and I talked about it on the podcast I just did with Nick.
Oh, there you
So
go.
I was giggling. I was like, I just talked about that. One other nitpick that I kind of had, and I know I'm like really nitpicking right now,
Here he
but
goes.
the way the kids talk to each other,
Ah,
their age doesn't match their banter.
I
Like,
see.
I don't think kids that age would have this huge span of space between the things they say. I 100% understand why he's doing it though. Like, you
Mhm.
got to build that suspense. You got to build that tension. So you space out what's being said. But I just didn't feel it with their age. So that, like I said, is really just nitpicking at this point, but it just kind of distracted me.
Yeah, I think I understand that. It almost feels a bit unnecessary for all the gaps. I personally didn't mind it because I think it just added to the suspense and just the
Mhm.
overall. I love the kind of like ASMR speaking is so quiet and so like be quiet or else the fucking demon is gonna hear you. Like it's just like, oh God, just keep it quiet. Um, but I mean, let's be honest. If we were in this situation as like a 5-year old, we would not be wandering around the house like in the dark. I would be underneath. I would probably be underneath the covers. Like I would be hiding for until the morning or until Dad shows up. Like I'm not going out and searching.
Right. Yeah, 100%. But
It
yeah,
actually
it's just something that I noticed. But yeah, I'm with you. I was like, I'm not just gonna sit there and watch cartoons and just wait. I'm gonna be hiding in a closet in my
right.
little space. Every kid has a space, and I would be
Yeah.
there.
I was also thinking just because of childhood fears. I was thinking of one time when I was left home alone. My brother and I think my mom and dad went out to like I don't know a dinner, like a date or something.
Hmm.
And for some reason, my brother and I were just. It was getting late. It was probably like I don't know 9 o'clock. It was dark out, and we just decided that we were spooked and that the best option would be to go outside. So we're just walking down our neighborhood street, probably like 6 years old. Like we're young.
Yeah.
And we just decided to leave the house because that's like less scary. And like I go to like my friend's house because we lived near like a bunch of apartments. And I would like knock on the door and ask if they wanted to go out and play. And it's like 9 o'clock. And they're like, oh, sorry, so and so's, eating dinner. And my parents pull up down the street as we were just wandering around. And they're like, what are you doing? And we're like, we're scared. It's like, well, why are you outside?
Yeah, right.
I'm,
You
I'm
don't
like,
have it is
that's
really
even
funny. Yeah, I was gonna say from a parent's perspective, outside is more scary, but for a kid, they don't know any better.
right. It's
They
like, well, this is more open, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the logic was in my brain, but for some reason, I was like, this is better.
No, I completely get it. Like, it is the innocence of you trusting the world. Like, whatever's in that house, like, fuck that. It's like a haunted house at that point. You're like,
Sure.
I don't want to be here. This is a space that feels uncomfortable. But outside, you're trusting of the world. It's like a animal that hasn't been beaten yet.
Yeah, no, that's
you don't
fair.
you don't know to be scared of people yet. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It
also
is.
kind of, yeah, I mean, it's also that little bit of fear of the dark too. I mean, it's dark inside. I don't know. But I think
Yeah.
your logic behind it makes a lot of sense.
I know. I just think it's adorable that a little kid logic. Although that is another level of scary for your parents, though. Like seeing your 6-year-old
Oh God,
child
I'd be
walking
mortified.
around, like, what the? Get
Yeah.
inside! You're
Yeah.
grounded forever.
Probably, yeah, I'm sure we scared the hell out of them with that. Um,
So, what else? Is there anything else in this movie that you that I haven't touched on yet?
um, I mean, I think overall it's more of a mood than really anything. Um,
Hmm.
like like I said, I feel like this would be a great one to see in a theater because you're sort of just you're close to the screen, it's big, it's loud, and you're just stuck watching it and being in that environment. It reminds me a bit of like this feels. I know it's probably not going to be as influential as like Paranormal Activity,
Hmm.
but it feels like it is in a sense. Like it feels like it has that power to be like the next thing in like horror. Because Paranormal Activity was so like, holy shit, this is terrifying, and everyone, I think, the hype was like, this is the scariest movie ever. And obviously, it's divisive, but it really kind of created a new, not a new genre, but like it changed the landscape in a sense in terms of horror.
Definitely. And the one before that, the Blair Witch, like I was
Yes.
around for the Blair Witch and it was like a huge phenomenon and people didn't think that that could be captured again. And I think you're right. Paranormal Activity did do that because even me being someone that's not really into horror,
Mhm.
I ended up putting on Paranormal Activity just to check out all the hype. I watched the director's cut and it scared the
Mm.
ever living
Oh
piss
yeah.
out of me.
And that movie does a good job of also kind of like giving you that grainy view and like what the fuck is in the shadow? I don't see it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I feel like both of those sort of share that in common. I'm actually looking at IMDb right now, and they both, well, Skinamarink, it has an estimated $15,000 budget,
Yeah.
and then same with Paranormal Activity, 15,000.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Um, this is interesting. Opening weekend for Paranormal made $77,000.
Hmm.
Skinamarink made 818,000.
Yeah.
That's unreal, but
Yeah. It's up there. Like I think right now it's like $1.2 million it's made so far.
and I think that's super cool that people are giving this sort of horror a chance, even if it's not like. I mean, obviously, none of the stuff is gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but
Hmm.
I love seeing a film that is breaking the mold and
Yeah.
it was purely just like YouTube horror stuff and make it
Hmm.
to like the Regal, like, Regal AMC theaters. I think that's a good thing.
I 100% agree with you. Like even though I may not have loved this film, I love the chances he took with the movie. Like I said, I would rather watch this than any, you know, paint by numbers film.
Sure.
Like I want more films to take chances because there are going to be more chances for creativity, you know. Like somebody's probably going to get inspired by this and do their own version of Skinamarink, and I'll probably love that. But if this didn't exist, I wouldn't see the other version. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed this. I think it really, the last 10 minutes kind of unnecessary. Like it shows, has some cool imagery,
Hmm.
like the door and like the toys on the ceiling and sort of like this tunnel that keeps expanding. I thought that was really cool, but it almost just felt like I said earlier, what it like, why are you showing this to me? It's
Hmm.
kind of, you've already kind of showed this stuff already,
Yeah.
but then it gets saved by the last scene, in my opinion, with that horrifying face hidden in the grain.
I knew you were going to bring
Oh,
it up.
yeah,
And I have to be honest, I got chills down my spine when that one popped
yeah,
up. I was like,
yeah,
up there it is.
yep. Have you seen Lake Mungo?
Yeah, we talked about it last
Oh,
episode. Yeah, you were saying like that one really got to you.
well, that also has that same effect of like shitty quality video
Hmm.
adding to horror like this. Like the fact that you can just barely make out a face, kind of like some of the moments in Lake Mungo. I don't know what it is. It's like the PS2 horror games, like Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil. It's like the fact that they're so low detail. It's like it's so much more creepy and uncanny, in my opinion.
No, I'd have to completely agree. Oh, I was trying to think like there was a horror movie that kept putting things in like the shadows
Mhm.
and they wouldn't like acknowledge it. Like you would just have to see it. And if you didn't see it, you kind of missed out. But it would creep me the fuck out because every time I would see it, I was like, ah, there it is. But you can barely make out what it is. Like it's yeah.
I know what was that show? I know there was a show that did that. Haunting.
Haunting of Hill House. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And
Yeah.
that was really effective.
100%. Those were even more obscure because, like, I would point at, like, the wife pointed out a couple of times. She's like, there's a face in there. I was like, what are you talking about? She would pause it. She's like, look at that. And I was like, holy crap, that's creepy. But apparently there was like hundreds scattered throughout that whole show.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It's like every shot had a face somewhere that you either noticed or you didn't.
Did you think that this movie was, I'm not sure if you already said already, but did you find it to be scary at all?
There were scary moments overall, no, but there were moments that left me like whenever it would do like a setup.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it would show the toys like scattering around and then it would like slowly pan up into a doorway and it's like black and I didn't know what to expect. That stuff freaks me out. I'm like, I don't know what to expect and I'm scared.
Yeah.
I don't like not knowing, but that's, that's the when it's working on you. But whenever it's like showing different parts of the house
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get that preamble, for those shots, I'm kind of just like, okay, let's get this going. That's when I was kind of bored with it. But
That's fair.
definitely, like I said, if you take those parts that freaked me out, condense them down a little bit, have a couple of those shots between them,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely be a lot more scared of this movie. It just lingered a little too long.
Yeah. I think the one shot that I was the shot with the girl's face and it's like
Mhm.
blurred out and it was like a very obvious jump scare. I was a little bit disappointed. I'm like, you didn't need to do that, dude. You didn't need to
Yeah,
have such an obvious jump scare. Come on.
I was kind of scared, surprised with the jump scares. Like there
Mhm.
were a couple where it would flash white and have this loud screeching sound,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Really? We're gonna do jump scares? That's weird. I didn't
It
expect that."
it felt weird because the camera setups are so unconventional where it's like, is this supposed to be POV? Is it supposed to be like what? It was so confusing that like when they did have those like very conventional jump scares, um, I don't know, it felt like out of place in certain ways. Like the TV coming on feels more natural than like here's the girl's face, blah, pop up. Um, I don't know. That was just something I kind of was wondering what you
Hmm.
felt.
Yeah, yeah. There were definitely some scary parts. Overall scary. No, did it freak me out a little bit? Sure. Yeah. I probably won't revisit it. Like it
Mhm.
was a hard watch through the middle part,
Yeah.
but you know, I applaud the effort though. I really do.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I have anything else to say.
Does it transcend?
You know, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna go with a yes. I
Yeah.
think I think it breaks the mold. You know, has this is this something that's very popular on YouTube? The style, probably yes. I'm not huge on this sort of liminal horror stuff, but I know it exists. But like I said, for this to play in a mainstream theater,
Hmm.
I think that's great. And that in itself is like, I don't know, that's awesome. I think it does kind of break the mold. I think it does transcend the normal horror fare these days. So yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a weird one. Does it transcend for me personally? No. But does
Mhm.
it transcend as a film for other people? Yes, I can't see that happening. So
That's fair.
it didn't do it for me, but I know it does it for a lot of people, and I'm glad it's there for those people like you and anybody else who appreciates this film. I'm glad you guys have it.
Yeah, that's
So
fair. Um, yeah, I wish I had more to add. I think
I think we covered. I mean, it's not really that complicated of a film, so there's not
no,
a whole lot to sink your teeth into. It's more so talking about the style and the creep factor and stuff like that. There's not much of a
that's
story besides your. I like the theory on the concussive kid that checks out for me anyway.
right. It'd be cool. I mean, maybe there's more like themes to dive into, but I personally just didn't see anything like deeper than like, you know, childhood fears and
Yeah.
this and that. But
Yeah, it definitely does a good job at tapping into those childhood fears we had. So
Mhm.
good job on that.
um, yeah, I mean, I wish I had another film to recommend for next time, but I'm gonna have to think on that for a bit.
Hey, no problem. I like it whenever we just like come across something that's like, ooh, I want to talk about that. Like
Right?
I got Holy Mountain, and I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the one.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I got about halfway through and I was like, man, this is heavy. It's
Oh,
heavy.
do you think it's like a hard to talk about because it's so artsy and weird, or
It's just there's a lot of religious stuff to it.
Mhm.
And I'm not a religious person, and I don't want to speak down on other people's religion, but it is
Sure.
very artistic and very ambiguous and very like you have to make your own meaning kind of thing, you
Mm.
know. And I don't know. We'll see. Well, if
Well,
I finish it, I'll see if I want to talk about it.
sure. I mean,
It
if
is
you
a
want,
great film.
it's a great film.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's just heavy.
Well, if you want, we could talk about oh fuck, what's the title of it? It's a remake essentially of Holy Mountain, but with footage of dogs. Have you heard of this?
I have not, but what is it?
Let me look this up real quick. My girlfriend's brother got it for me for Christmas. Um, yeah, it's a remake made entirely out of footage of dogs and like clips of dogs in movies. Have you heard of Everything is Terrible?
Oh yeah.
So they made it.
Oh okay.
It's called Doggy Woggies Poochie Woochies.
Yeah, I looked it up. Tim Allen, what?
Oh, is he going to be did they show the Shaggy dog in it?
I don't know.
Oh, I
I
hope.
pulled up the IMDb. Tim Allen, Jim Belushi, Matthew Broderick, Gary Busey, Chevy Chase. What is this madness? Oh, I have to
So,
watch this.
yeah, maybe we can cover that if the regular Holy Mountain's too much.
That is fucking hilarious. I
I
did
know,
not know
right?
about this.
I I had no idea it existed. I'm like, this is absurd. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether
Def-
or not to watch that first or watch Holy Mountain first. I don't know if watching this first would just ruin it.
yeah, because the Holy Mountain is definitely worth watching. Like 1973, artistic art house movie. It's worth watching at least once. Definitely.
I believe it. I'm sure
Yeah.
watching the dog version would probably make me less interested. So,
Yeah, probably. But whenever you come across a movie that you want to talk about, just let me know and we'll definitely talk about it.
all right, sounds good.
All right. Well, until next time, guys. Later.
Later.